and it is going to be recorded for marketing purposes as well as library archive purposes. So as Matt pointed out a few minutes ago, this is actually a bit of a historic moment because this is going to be the first presidential, vice presidential debate that is going to be recorded in the university's archives. So congrats to everyone here on that. As I was saying, this is going to be, this is an annual FUSA presidential and vice presidential debate. We have 2 tickets here who are going to talk about their campaigns and the issues that matter to them. And we are going to start with a 2-minute opening statement from both tickets. We are going to start with Tyler and Cailyn.
Thank you for having us, and thank you everyone for coming. Let's get started. Hi, I'm Tyler Heffern, a junior politics and history double major who has served in the FUSA Senate for 3 years, including as speaker. While there, I have worked to open the Constitutional Convention, fight for international student health insurance waivers, increase feminine hygiene accessibility in public restrooms, as well as served on the FUSA COVID Task Force, the FUSA and Campus Sustainability Committees, and a whole host of other campus organizations. That was a lot, I know, but I really want my message tonight to be that I care, that we will listen, that we will be responsive, and we will work as hard as we can to improve the student experience here at Fairfield. We have incredible experience in the organization and on this campus. We have an ambitious but realistic platform to address student concerns, and we have the know-how to accomplish our initiatives. Ultimately, we are here to serve the students to the best of our abilities. I hope that tonight, through our answers, you're able to see that.
Hi, everyone. My name is Cailyn Fiori. I'm a junior communication major, a FUSA programmer, and a lot of other things that are equally important to me, but I frankly don't have the time to talk about in this next minute. But besides all these things, and at my core, I'm someone that cares really deeply about each and every person I have the opportunity to know. To some of you, this might sound like a load of baloney, but I truly do mean that. As the FUSA president, this core characteristic of mine would be the driving force of how I do my job, to strive to not only care about each of you, but to make it known that I care about each of you, even those I might not agree with. When Tyler asked me to run with him, I honestly wasn't sure. I wasn't sure if it was right for me or if you would all see me as someone that was fit for the position, but after a lot of reflection and back and forth, I realized there's a reason I couldn't get the idea to leave my head, even after I told Tyler like twice I wouldn't do it. I'm someone that has always strived to make the biggest impact I possibly could and to facilitate a positive experience. This position will allow me to do just that.
We hope that tonight you will hear our platform and share our goal to make Fairfield a better place to learn, to grow, to have fun, and to become the person you want to be when you leave 1073 North Benson Road. Thank you.
Thank you both. Noah and Manjot, you may now give your opening.
Yes, thank you guys, everyone, for coming. You know, it's been a tough couple days, and any leader must admit when they make a mistake and then learn from it. Yesterday, I made a mistake with an insensitive claim published in the Mirror. I apologize to the LGBTQ community who I offended when I said that we could get away with opening a Chick-fil-A restaurant. This was just one of the many restaurants in our platform, but they were not discussed in the interview, such as Chipotle, Taco Bell, or Five Guys. I echoed a popular opinion for a choice of restaurant, but my statement was poorly worded and does not reflect my beliefs. I'm committed to learning more about discrimination and its impacts on the LGBTQ community. Unfortunately, I saw discrimination firsthand when my running mate's qualification was said to be based on her status as a woman of color. While the Mirror took disciplinary action toward the writer, we're going to make the Fairfield community a more inclusive and safe place for minority students. As the 2020 FUSA Senator of the Year, I have a record of strong leadership, but an even stronger record of getting things done. Our priorities are to create a restaurant that all students favor, develop a plan to fully reopen in the fall, and provide increased support for clubs with a focus on affinity clubs. Finally, I just want to thank everyone who's been supporting us through all of this, through the campaign and through all these difficult times.
My first statement here tonight is, where were you? Where were my fellow stags, including the opponents in this debate who viewed me as a competitor instead of a person when I faced racial injustice that they are claiming to address? My name is Manjot Singh, and I'm the Associate Director of Diversity and Inclusion in FUSA, and I promise you, stags, that the fight begins now. We will fight like we have never fought before to change the unjust treatment of our minority students, commuter students, and people of color on this campus. We will not just claim to address these issues, but we will work tirelessly to make every single student feel like they are a part of this Fairfield community. If you are here tonight and felt the way that I felt yesterday, I want to say I'm sorry. I know sorry is not enough to compensate for what you've experienced, but I really am determined to make a difference. Vote for me as your vice president to not only point out injustice like the other ticket is claiming to, but actually correct our university's wrongdoings.
Excuse me, Manjot, if you're not finished yet, please wrap up. It has been past 30 seconds.
I just finished.
Okay, thank you both for those opening statements. We're now going to move to the pre-written question portion of the debate. I am Daniel Messier, by the way. I'm the Chief Justice of the FUSA Court. I'm moderating this debate. And here with me are Associate Justices Dominique, Matt, and Noah. We have written these questions ahead of time, but there is going to be a portion of the debate that we're going to move to in about 35 minutes where you will be able to ask your own questions. So please use that Q&A portion tab at the bottom of your Zoom call to write any questions that you have for these candidates. So the first question that we're going to get to here, and we're going to start with Noah and Manjot on this one. The FUSA budget is approximately $400,000. In the face of COVID-19, how do you plan to manage this budget?
The budget was always something as a senator I was always very concerned about. Students spend a lot of money to go here, and I always want to make sure that with that money, we can maximize the student experience. Right now, I know that there's a lot of money in the budget that's sitting aside for events such as Red Seat Madness and Prez Ball. And as much as we'd like to bring some of those events back, we'll have to do a very serious dive on whether or not we'd be comfortable putting that in the next budget. However, when we look at money like that, we see so much potential. We see money for clubs, we see money for initiatives. We see so much that FUSA can do to help the student body, whether it's from scholarships to I would say club funding and sustainability efforts. We definitely would like to put some money towards a sustainability committee that I worked to create when I was a senator. So I would love to as well address that issue. And I would say overall, we want to make sure that we spend your money correctly. You pay a lot to go here, and that is a big priority of ours.
Okay, now moving to Tyler and Cailyn. Same question.
Money is a very important issue that FUSA bases their decisions off of. The FUSA budget is large, but we need to be using that money that really goes to them. We're supposed to be using that money to impact their student experience in a positive way. And using that money to fund sustainability efforts, including giving the Sustainability Committee an actual budget, putting on events that students actually want to go to, that students love going to, addressing a lot of the racial diversity and inequities that Manjot was talking about, scholarships like that too, specifically funding offices and groups that support diversity. All of these issues are things that need to be addressed, and all these issues that we have put into our plan are included. We need money in order to do that. And we need to be spending the money of FUSA much more effectively, including giving the Senate, which has a lot of initiatives for advocacy initiatives, giving them enough of a budget to really get a lot of their things done, including working on feminine hygiene accessibility. Funding that is a massive part of what FUSA should be able to do. And under our leadership, we will be doing that.
All right, thank you to both tickets. So moving on to the next question. Both tickets have stated that they want to bring events back to campus for the next year. What events do you think will be able to be brought back next semester, and how do you plan to do this? And we're going to start with Tyler and Cailyn this time.
So programming is something that I've been doing since I was a first year, and we've already begun to talk about this given the circumstances with COVID beginning in 2020. And as a programming board, we have discussed in depth how we could bring some of those bigger events back in a safe way, such as Red Seat Madness, such as Prez Ball, and making sure that we can actually put them on in a safe way is our first and foremost priority, of course. I do think it is realistic to be able to bring back either of those events. It might look a lot different and be modified in some way, whether that means doing it totally outside in a venue like the Bellarmine Hall lawn, like we've done in the past, or possibly even on one of the fields here. It's definitely capable and possible to put those on in a safe and fun way that the students expect. And so I think to say that COVID means that we can't have any in-person programming come fall 2021 would not be an accurate statement. It's something that Tyler and I feel strongly about, and that we are going to be able to return to those events. And then looking at some of smaller scale events, those are definitely something that we are able to do as well.
Thank you. And now Noah and Manjot, same question.
I think Cailyn did a really good job kind of addressing some of those issues, but I would say the number one thing that we have to address when it comes to programming is we need to realize that without vaccines and a solid vaccination plan, we can dream of all the events we want, but they just can't happen. So we need to work with the university to make sure that we have a solid plan to get vaccinations to every student. And if we don't have that, then we can't dream of events such as Red Sea Madness or Presball. On a more optimistic note, however, I do agree with that. I think that we can get both of those events back. And I do think if we have a fully vaccinated campus, I think they can look a lot more similar to what we've seen in the past. I think perhaps the compromise we might have to make on an event like Red Sea Madness would be you have to wear masks. Maybe people will be spread apart a bit more. I think the big question with that also then comes, which is a great question for both of our tickets, would be where do you want to have a large concert with Alumni Hall being gone? And I think the answer to that, the best answer that we can give you, is probably going to be Rafferty Stadium. I think that venue would allow for the most amount of people, and it would also allow for some social distancing as well. It would also raise the capacity, and I think that we could have some big events there. If that was not viable, then Bellarmine Lawn would also be an option. It's going to be difficult to negotiate where we can have an outdoor concert. It's going to be a very big task, but Manjot and I are more than up to the task of working hard. We've always worked hard, and we'll continue to work hard to make sure that we can make these programs happen.
Thank you, Tyler and Cailyn, same question.
Dan, they already answered.
Yeah, we answered that question.
Yeah.
Great. Sorry. So moving forward then, what do you think are the biggest problems facing Fairfield University students, and what possible solutions do you see? And now we are starting with Noah and Manjot.
Manjot, do you mind taking this one?
Yeah, of course.
Apologize.
No, it's okay. I think right now the biggest, kind of problem that students are facing is the pandemic. If I'm being quite honest, the pandemic has taken a very big toll on a lot of students' mental health, most importantly right now. A lot of students are going in and out of quarantine, and they haven't been able to focus on their academics. And, a lot of students have said that the academic quality has not been the same. Students that are remote feel like they're not being, they feel like they just don't fit in right now. They're being pushed to the side. So I think that's something that's very important. Students need a lot of support to get back to normal. Once we get those vaccines, once, everyone starts to come back on campus, this is not something that's going to easily just go away. It's going to take a lot to get everyone mentally to where they were before this pandemic happened. And I think it's going to take a lot of, tough leadership and strong leadership to really work with students to make sure that they're engaged in fun activities, and they're really getting back up there.
Okay, Tyler and Cailyn now.
Yeah, I agree. COVID-19 is probably the biggest issue, along with all the other massive issues that are facing students at this time, whether it's, wanting a greener Fairfield, whether it's, dealing with classes and the like, trying to build relationships like they do in a normal climate. This is a massive issue, including leading to a lot of economic hardships throughout the country, including people who attend our university right now. And that is really what we're trying to hit on. We really want to be there for the students. We really care about the students. We want to provide a lot of the opportunities that they've had in the past, get back to normal as quickly as we can, but as safely as we can, so that students can really enjoy their college experience. They can really, remember their time while here. They can get the best education that they're searching for, that they can prepare for their careers ahead of them, get a lot of the opportunities that they're missing at this moment. So I completely agree. COVID-19 is a massive issue, and making sure that the university protects students, keeps them safe, but as well as kind of provides the same experience that they're entitled to is a massive undertaking, something that we have plenty of experience to accomplish, and we're looking forward to.
Thank you both. Now staying on the topic of COVID-19, how do you feel that you have adapted to the remote world during the pandemic, and how do you think the pandemic will affect your ability to perform your responsibilities as president and vice president? We're starting with Tyler and Cailyn now.
So I think like any student, it was definitely a huge adjustment at the beginning. I don't even think I really knew what Zoom was. But in the recent months, I feel like I've been able to adapt to all of the club meetings I have, involvement, teaching FYE, and also just for day-to-day classes in a way that works for me. And I think hasn't inhibited my ability to be a leader or to be a student. And I think moving forward, I feel like I will only be able to be stronger in my ability to do that. And I'm sure Tyler feels the same.
Yeah, and I can speak that serving currently on the FUSA COVID task force, I work firsthand with administration on adjusting the university to a new campus climate that is impacted by COVID-19 with administrators, with other members of the campus community. And as speaker, while I was speaker, I personally adapted the Senate to an online platform, which had never been done before. And it was a good success. And we actually had more participation in our meetings from the student body than we ever had before. So I think we're very equipped to tackle this issue.
I would say on our side, certainly the pandemic has been a massive impact on all of us. And I think everyone should be kind of praised for how much strength mentally, physically, that it takes to do this. Some people go their entire lives without facing a crisis like we have faced. And I think this is something that people need to realize is a temporary thing. This pandemic will go away one day, and we're going to be able to have the Fairfield that we know and love back. And I think that can happen very soon. To go back to the question, though, I certainly did struggle at first with the switch to online learning. I found specifically, some of the math classes, the calculus, all that type of stuff to be really difficult online, for sure. I'd say the online classes was certainly a bit of a downgrade for most professors. They weren't familiar with the technology, and I think that's gotten better this semester. However, I think the learning instruction quality definitely declined, and it was something that the university never seriously discussed. So I was definitely disappointed with that, and I think it was difficult when I can say for everybody that just not having your friends there, not being able to work in your home environment. Like my biggest struggle when I was at home was that I just didn't have the mindset that I could work efficiently and work well at first. But I had to adapt and I had to overcome, and I've had no issues since. And I think I've been a lot stronger. As Cailyn said, she was a lot stronger. I think I've been a lot stronger because of this whole pandemic. As far as a leader, I've been able to conduct everything online. I've had no problems, had meetings with administrators, done everything that my position entitled.
Sorry, please wrap it up. It's past 30 seconds.
Yeah, we're good.
Okay, moving on to the next question now. We're going to start with Noah and Manjot on this one. How would you handle a situation in which the student body wants you to do something that the administration opposes?
Most good policies a lot of the time happen that way, is that students will want something and the university will say no. And I think the most important thing to understand as a leader, and that's the number one thing that I've learned from being a management major, is that you have to be able to negotiate. And the way that you negotiate always has to be through mutually beneficial deals. The problem that FUSA has a lot of the time is we'll go to the administration and complain and complain and complain, but we don't always have good solutions. And not only is that the issue, but they don't want to listen to solutions that are one-sided. If they don't see the benefit that the university gains from it, if they don't see, for example, with an on-campus restaurant, the way that I propose something like that is I say, you will have an opportunity to make a lot of money. You will have an opportunity to greatly expand students' dining options, to fix a lot of the complaints you guys have received for years about that. And also, I see it as an opportunity where you can say, hey, prospective students, we have all these cool things on campus. Look at how much our student government plays a factor in the way that we make decisions. So I think that we can get a lot of things that aren't popular with the administration done if we can explain to them why it's beneficial for them to do it, beyond just student wants and needs.
Okay, thank you. Tyler and Cailyn, same question.
Absolutely, it is a give and take. That is true. But there's also another aspect to it. As student leaders and as representatives of the student, we are here to do their work. If they want us to do something, it is our job to make sure it gets done, right? And of course, sometimes you have to sit down with the administration and say, how can we make a mutually beneficial deal? But other times, we need to be fighting for whatever makes the student body the most happy. That is our job. And we need to stay principled in those aspects. We can't compromise on everything. We can't, lose track of what we're trying to do, what we're trying to accomplish just to benefit the administration. There's things that students want done, and we need to be doing it for them. And so I've worked with administration many times in the past, a lot of hot button issues, a lot of things that they don't want to do. And we've gotten things done, and we've made deals. We've made the Tully better. It needs to go a lot further. It really does. And there's other aspects of dining experience that need to be improved. But we've slowly been doing it, and I think that's a tenet to our work as student leaders.
All right, thank you both. Moving on to a somewhat similar question with a different sentiment. How would you handle a situation in which the student body wants you to do something? How would you handle a conflict in which the student body wants you to do something that you personally disagree with? And we are going to start with Tyler and Cailyn.
Yeah, so I think something that is important to recognize is that as president and vice president of FUSA and of the student body, we're not trying to make the student body Cailyn and Tyler's student body, like we are doing this at the end of the day for the students. And if there was an overwhelming majority of students that wanted something to happen on campus, who are we to say that that can't happen, or who are we to stop that from happening? Like Tyler was saying in the previous question, at the end of the day, we're here to make the students happy and push for whatever is going to be the most well-loved thing on campus for them. And so I think if there was something that the student body wanted that we didn't agree with personally, but we could see just how much of an impact it would have, we would absolutely continue to push for it anyway.
Yes, we work for you. If we have opinions or beliefs on a matter that are against the student bodies, they don't matter. If they don't, your voice matters, and we're going to represent you. So we can promise that now.
Thank you. Noah and Manjot, same question.
I also agree with that sentiment. It's exactly that, is that you have to, as a student leader, you have to represent the people that elected you. It's that simple. And unless they are making a very, very absurd request, and the majority of students would never agree on an absurd request. They would never agree to do something that would hurt a large percentage of students. So I don't see a scenario really. In general, I think you can run into issues as far as diversity, where you can see a majority of students potentially proposing something that would hurt a protected class. I think in those cases, that would probably be about the only one where you have to really seriously consider if it's the right decision. But 99 out of 100 times, it is our job to best represent the student body, to go to the administration and present the needs and wants. It doesn't matter how big the issue is, doesn't matter how small the issue is. I mean, when I work on IRHA, if someone needs a toilet fixed in their residence hall, I mean, that's an issue that has to get addressed. If a student wants to completely change like a station at the Tully, that's a request that I'll also listen to, and I'll work with the administration to see if these requests are possible whenever possible. So it's our job to serve the students always. So I will always represent the students unless there was some unforeseen circumstance that was horrific.
And I really want to echo that as well. I think that it's really important to recognize that the students are the ones that voted us in, and we're here to serve the students. We're not here to kind of make it our own thing. We are elected representatives for the students, and we will make sure that we're representing the students to the full capacity that we have.
Okay, thank you both. This question is going to be specifically for President Noah, or presidential candidate Noah Richardson. So Noah, the Fairfield Gender and Sexuality Alliance recently made a statement about something you were quoted saying in the Mirror. I'm going to now read their statement. Quote, we're the leaders of Fairfield's Gender and Sexuality Alliance felt it necessary to make a statement on the recent comments made by a FUSA presidential candidate. It is upsetting and harmful to the LGBTQ plus community on campus. A student leader is willing to excuse a company's history of homophobia in favor of proposing a possible new restaurant just because Fairfield is a Catholic school. The candidate stated, I don't support those viewpoints by any stretch of the imagination, but I think that since it's a Catholic institution, we could get away with it a bit. This shows us that homophobia is not a deal breaker to some student leaders. Gender and Sexuality Alliance and Fairfield's LGBTQ plus community as a whole struggle to be visible on campus, and a statement like this that serves to invalidate our existence and paints the university as a place that is unsafe for us. A FUSA president should and needs to represent the entire student body, including the LGBTQ plus community. We hope that this will be addressed during tonight's FUSA presidential debate, and we look forward to working with whoever is elected with pride. Fairfield Gender and Sexuality Alliance, unquote. So I know you touched on this during your opening statement. I was wondering if you wanted to reply to that statement.
Absolutely, and their concerns are completely valid. I made a monumentous mistake. I completely misworded the statement that I was trying to make, where I was trying to present a certain viewpoint that I had heard some students say. I had heard some students make the argument that Fairfield is a Catholic institution and Chick-fil-A as an evangelical institution have a lot of links. So I heard that argument. I was not supporting that argument. I think that that's where there was a bunch of missing context. I don't support that argument. I'm presenting the argument that I heard. It's not what I support. I terribly misworded the response. That was completely my fault. As a FUSA president, I should be expected to speak better than how I spoke that day. It was definitely a stressful situation, and I regret it completely. Their concerns are absolutely valid. I made a mistake. I was wrong. I have no issues admitting that. And in the future, we will work with them as much as we can to make sure that they have a platform to accomplish their goals. Whatever goals that they decide is important to advance the community, I am more than willing to give them the funding and the resources that they need to achieve those goals.
All right, thank you for that response. We are now going to move on. This question is going to start with Tyler and Cailyn. Sustainability and environmentally friendly policies have become important issues throughout FUSA and the university as a whole. What plans do you have to increase the university's efforts towards sustainability?
Yeah, I am very passionate about sustainability. I serve on the FUSA Sustainability Committee. I also serve on the Campus Sustainability Committee, and I've never missed a meeting. They're both great institutions that are really fighting for change at this university. And we're lagging. We're lagging behind every other Jesuit institution that we're trying to rival, to be peers with, and it's sad. There are so many issues that can be done. We can, put recycling bins, garbage cans in every student dorm room so that they can easily recycle. Expanding TerraCycle, which is a larger recycling program that does a lot of other materials besides regular recycling ones. Donating to sustainable groups, bringing sustainable groups on campus. There are so many issues. Electronic waste, engaging in the construction of different buildings and how to make them more energy efficient lighting, reducing water consumption with on-campus gardening, reducing waste in the telly. All of these things can help make Fairfield greener, make them more sustainable. And I will fight as hard as I can to address those concerns that many students on campus have, that many students, even prospective students, have about how Fairfield is being sustainable.
Thank you. Noah and Manjot.
I thought this was a question for just the senator. Or is this also a question for us?
This is for both tickets, unless you.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I did want to address a bit more of my role on sustainability. So last year, when I was working on the sustainability to create the sustainability task force, my vision behind that was to present an opportunity for passionate students. We have a great one sitting across from me right now, Matt Little, and there's tons of students who are very passionate about sustainability, who know the science, and I was not as knowledgeable on the science. And so I thought it would be a good idea to get those people together. As someone pointed out, I technically did not create it. I did work with now President Gadioma. He was a sponsor on that bill. I was the author of that bill and resolution, should I say. And President Gadioma took the idea of the sustainability resolution and he created it. He brought it to life, and I was glad that he did that. We worked on it together, and I was very glad when we worked on the sustainability, or not sustainability, when we worked on facilities together, it was an issue that we both agreed needed addressing. And I want to give the Sustainability Committee all the resources that it needs to succeed. And I'm completely committed to doing that. And we will give them everything they need to address the issues, to see what's wrong with the university plan from 2015. It was atrocious. We don't have a lot of updates on what they did. So we'd like to see what the university has done.
Just please wrap up. We're trying to keep it under the time.
Yep, sorry. We just want to see what the university's actually done. So that was the goal of that.
All right, thank you for that. This next question is going to be for just the vice presidential candidates. We're going to start with Manjot. What do you think the role of FUSA vice president should be? How do you envision the role?
So I believe that the role of the vice president is to assume the delegated responsibilities provided by the president and to facilitate the day-to-day operations of the executive branch. The vice president should serve the student body, alongside the president and work to make sure that they are equally representing the entirety of the student population and ensure that everyone's voices are being heard and also understood. Most importantly, any leadership position requires an individual who is a good listener. You cannot say that you're going to represent all students, but only listen to a small percentage of them. You need to be able to listen to every single person in the room, and then after hearing what they've had to say, make a decision which will benefit the community the most.
Cailyn?
Yeah, thank you. So I mean, aside from obviously wanting to support the president, in my case, Tyler, as much as I possibly can, when I hear this question, it makes me think of something that some of you might be familiar with, which is the Clifton Strengths. If you don't know what it is, it's kind of like a personality test. My top strength is woo. In short, really just means that I seek out to make real connections with other people. And I think that perfectly describes what I envision myself doing as the vice president. Since I've been at Fairfield, I really have strived to get to know each and every person I've had the chance to come in contact with well, and to understand what they need from me, whether it's as their NSL, as their FUSA programmer, as their tour ambassador, whatever that might be. I am really just seeking to get to know who they are at their core and how they can best have a good college experience. And I think that is the primary role of the vice president, is to get to know the students for who they really are, and then make decisions for them or help them get to where they want to be in whatever means possible, working with the president, of course. And that's what I would see myself doing as the vice president.
Thank you. I'm going to remind everyone that we're going to ask a few more questions before we move to audience questions here. So if you have anything that you would like to ask either of these tickets or any of these four candidates specifically, make sure you type that in the Q&A section. Again, we might not get to everyone's question, but we are going to try and ask as many as we can. So the next question for all of you, it's actually just going to be for the presidential candidates, Tyler and Noah. And it is, what do you think is the most important characteristic of a leader, and why? And we're starting with Tyler.
I think there's a lot of characteristics. Every time we go to one of those retreats, like Nation Leisure College or other organizations, there is always a list of things that people come up with. For one of them, I definitely think honesty is crucial. You have to be honest with people. You have to be transparent. When you say you're going to do something, you have to mean it. You have to when you promise something, you have to follow through with it. You have to be honest in all aspects, to the student body, to other people you're working with. That's crucial to being a leader. You can't, just go around and say whatever it is that, makes you look best at the time. And this isn't the attack anyone, just in general. Honesty is crucial. And I think, we are very honest people. I always try to be honest, and I will continue to be honest, whether we're elected or not. I promise to be an honest person, to be a transparent person, to do what I think is the most honest thing for people. How many times I said honest? Oh my goodness.
I'll take a bit of a reframe on that question. And I think the most important thing about a leader is actually their philosophy. I think a leader, the goal of a leader is to facilitate their members' dreams. What I want to do as FUSA president is to give every single member of this organization, I want to meet all of them. And in a non-COVID world, I'd shake their hand. But I'll tell you, I want to know why everyone joins the FUSA. I want to know why. I want to know what drives them. What issues are they passionate about? And as a leader, I believe the most important thing you can do is give people the resources. That is your job. It's not your job to go command. It's not your job to go micromanage. It's not your job to tell everyone how to do their job. You hire people because they're talented. And you have to let your talented people do the work that you are trusting them to do. And as FUSA president, I believe you have to have a mindset where you trust your team and you have to give them the power and the resources to accomplish their goals. And I'll work with every single member of this organization to accomplish their own personal goals. That goes to senators with their platforms. I will work with everybody to give them the resources that only the president of FUSA has, to give them those resources so that they can succeed in whatever they are most passionate about.
All right, thank you both. The next question we're going to move to. Fairfield University continues to struggle with a lack of diversity in its population, and FUSA struggles to have adequate representation throughout its boards and branches. How would you aim to address these issues and promote a more inclusive campus and student government? We're going to start with Noah and Manjot.
Sure. So I just want to start by saying, imagine being part of the 2%. Yeah, you heard that correctly. I am only part of the 2% of Asian students at this university. It's no surprise that Fairfield University is a predominantly white institution. It is obvious that there are racial injustices happening each day, just like the one that happened to me yesterday. We need to advocate to make sure that every single student feels safe and feels welcome, because no one should even for a moment think that they do not belong at this university. We will work hard with the Diversity and Inclusion Board, but also with affinity clubs on campus, and work to see how we can support them and what we can do to make sure that everyone feels safe. One initiative that I proposed and actually began working on alongside Senator Ryan Asarian is to develop a system of support groups so students can talk to other peers as well as counselors to speak out against injustices, so they can meet other people who are also going through similar situations, and that so they can fight together as a group. Since my first year, I had always wished that there were other people I could talk to, so I felt like I wasn't the only one going through it, because honestly, I was scared to go through it alone. And by providing students with resources to voice their concerns and to gain support, we can make sure that they feel like they are being heard.
Thank you for that. And now Tyler and Cailyn, same question.
This is an important issue. We know that. We want to help. We are allies. When the events happened over the summer, Cailyn and I really realized that things like this happen all the time, and it's unacceptable. It really is. And we knew that this was an issue that we wanted to bring up in our campaign when we decided to run. And we released a 9-point plan. That's only some of the things that we want to tackle regarding racial diversity on campus, and the injustices that are happening every day, not just here, but in our community. And part of that is integrating cultural history in the classroom. Changing and reforming FYE courses to address those issues too. Expanding training for faculty and staff so they can address these topics easier. Same thing with DPS. Providing money and more funding and resources to clubs and organizations that are like Fairfield United, BSU, who are advocating for these issues, really getting on the same page with them and uniting the effort. As well as supporting other groups on campus and offices on campus that support minority students, the students of color. And working with all these different organizations together as a united front against some of the organizations that are blocking us and not really letting us reform the university, to change the university. That's what's important. We really need to all come together, have one united platform, one united voice, be on the same page, and address these issues together. And that's how we can actually create change on campus, because change isn't happening now. It's not, and it needs to.
Okay, thank you both for that. Next question. Concerns and issues have arisen recently regarding students' housing contracts, with some juniors not being released from their contract to live off campus senior year. Do you see the housing contract as an issue? And if so, how do you plan to address it? And Tyler and Cailyn, you're starting this one.
Yeah. So I've actually worked on this issue firsthand with Charlie Seuss and other members in Res Life, because it's unacceptable. As tour ambassadors, Cailyn and I both know, the university tells us to tell students that they're going to have the opportunity to live on the beach senior year. That's what's a huge draw for potential and prospective students. And how can that not be true? How can they not be letting people off? That's ridiculous. It's unacceptable and it's absurd. So we need to reform the process, clearly. Thankfully, after having all these conversations that we talked to, more students will be allowed to leave campus when they'll be released this spring. So more students will be able to do that, but all students should be able to if they're applying for it. That's something that the university boasts about. Why isn't that happening? And that's why we need to reform the system, so that we can, identify which students are going to be leaving campus their senior year earlier, so that they can engage in leases when they're doing so and know that they're going to be able to leave. Making the process more mainstream and easier to accomplish, and expanding the amount of people that can left campus, because really what they're telling us is that it's a financial issue, that they don't want to spend, that they're going to lose too much money if they release too many students. And that's a ridiculous argument. And they should not be basing where you get to live and what privileges you get based on how much money they're going to be getting. That's absurd. Other universities are letting students off campus their sophomore year, and we wait until senior year to let them off campus. I don't know. That's not okay.
Housing is an issue I've worked on extensively. I'm on IRHA, so housing's kind of our thing. And I was in, I believe, the same meeting that the senator's referring to. And we really, in that meeting, we really kind of dealt with some of those issues, or started to talk about some of those issues, should I say. And I think the big problem is of course, there's the money aspect of it. And I think the university, but what the university knows is there's only a certain amount of people who are legally allowed to live by zoning laws off of on the beach area. So the university knows that. So they know how many people could live there. So they could plan housing so that the amount of people who would live would offset. So they know exactly how much senior housing they need, because pretty much every year seniors want to go live on the beach. That's never been a consistent problem, as the senator said. It's a selling point for the university. So I think it's important that we start to reform this practice. I think we can make it a process where the university knows that they either know that students are entering these leases early. So that should factor into these decision processes, because you have problems with people who get released for housing, and then there's no housing really available because everyone who signed leases already took that housing. So I think it becomes a really messy process, and it really doesn't have to be. I think it should be an easy, if you want to live off campus and the housing exists, you should be able to do so. And that's a simple answer. And we are going to work towards that. I think it's an issue that certainly is something that upperclassmen, and I apologize to the current junior class who's had to deal with issues as far as going of overcapacity on the beach.
All right, thank you to both tickets for your responses there. That is going to conclude the pre-written question portion of the debate. We're now going to move that audience to audience questions that we have received in the last 45 minutes. I want to thank you all for your questions that you have submitted. Again, we're not going to get to all of them right now. We're going to go till probably a little past 8. But thank you again to everyone who has submitted. The first question, and we're going to start with Noah and Manjot. Many underprivileged students cannot afford technology for remote learning. What will you do to ensure that all students have equal opportunity as remote learning continues?
That's a fantastic question. And I think, obviously remote learning, we hope that that we're near the end of that. But I think the university should absolutely be providing some sort of resources. At the very least, I think we need some kind of reimbursement plans to at least partially cover these costs. It's not something I'm particularly familiar with, but I will say that there should be no case where a student doesn't have access to in-person classes, but then they don't have an alternative. That's not what we pay $60,000, $70,000 a year for. We don't pay for that. We pay for the university to provide us with the in-person class. We pay for in-person classes. So if we can't have those, then the university has to come up with a viable alternative, no matter what your economic situation is. Your economic situation should not define your access to education. That's a statement for just Fairfield, but a statement for society as a whole.
I'm sorry, this is a question for both candidates or just for the associate?
Yeah, these will all be for both tickets unless I specify otherwise.
Okay, yeah. We totally agree. This is an important issue. And, there's a lot of different ways to explore this, whether it's working with financial aid to actually, benefit the students who are in need at this time, whether it's expanding and increasing the FUSA scholarship, which I did serve on the committee for, which President Gadioma has reinstituted to provide funding and support for students in need, more students in need. Working with ITS to actually ensure that those resources are provided to students who need them at certain times. We can certainly address those issues, and I think it's the important issues to address because, like Senator, oh my goodness, Associate Justice Richardson said, students should be able to come to the university that they're paying for and get the education that they deserve, that they're entitled to, and that's what we want to do. That's what we want to provide.
Thank you for your response. Next audience question that we are going to read. Students that are quarantined off campus report dissatisfaction and a lack of occupation and stimulation. What will you do to improve the qualities of life for quarantine students? We're starting with Tyler and Cailyn here.
Yeah. So working on the COVID task force, this is an issue that came up a lot of times. How do we make the students who are in quarantine, kind of feel more like people? Because what are they let out for, like, a walk once a day? That's crazy. I mean, they're not in prison. They should be able to, actively kind of go to class as they usually would on Zoom. They should be able to, watch kind of a lot of the programs that they would be able to. They should have the life that they want, right? Of course, they need to be safe for that period of time because, they may pose a risk to certain members of our community. But they're not in prison, and working with mental health, the mental health center, the Center for Mental Health, what's it called, psychological center, to actively help those students is something that we would be focusing on, and providing more funding to that office to increase the staff that they have, because they have a decreased staff already and they have to turn students away, which is completely unacceptable. That's something that we would focus on. That's what we need to provide these students with the support they need at this time, especially when they're being isolated for 14 days at a time. That's crazy.
Just to follow up on that a bit, I mean, on programming, we are pushing for virtual programming as much as possible. And I think, if anything, we would push for that even more and really advertising it to those students in quarantine so they're able to see some people and have fun social interaction while they are stuck in the conference center or a hotel, whatever it may be.
I think the whole situation with quarantine students is tragic. Nobody wants to be there, of course, but you have to make that experience the least painful that you can. And I think that goes to really focusing on mental health resources. And while I don't think FUSA can necessarily fund a lot of, that's more kind of a university issue, I do think that we could absolutely lobby the university to say, hey, maybe these students should be checked up on. Maybe they should be getting calls. Maybe there should be an email check-in. Some sort of mental health check-in, at least periodically, maybe not every day, but maybe every couple of days. Like, make sure that these people are okay, and then make sure that they have access to quality food. I've heard completely mixed reviews on what the food that they've had is. So from some people, I know a lot of people who have been able to do a lot of Uber Eats and stuff, and for those people who have the resources, that's a great solution. But if you don't have those resources, then you certainly should be able to have a high quality meal, the same that you would have at the Tully or Oak Room now. I would say you should have access to a similar thing. I mean, you're technically paying for a meal plan, so you should have access to quality food. So I think those two issues is mental health resources and food. I think those two things. And then I would say, kind of working to see what exactly some of the regulations are, what are the laws that Connecticut has, and how can we do the most for our students? How can we give them the most opportunities, the most freedom possible? And we'd have to definitely work with administrators to do that. I think they're doing what they can. It's a unique, it's a completely novel thing, and it's a difficult situation. And we definitely want to help mental health and food. That's my short answer to the question.
Thank you. This next question was addressed to Tyler, but I think it's something that could be applicable to all of you. So I'm going to open it up to both tickets. In your years of FUSA experience, what is one thing that you want to change or have always wanted to change? We're starting with Noah and Manjot here.
If there's one thing that I want to change about FUSA, and President Gaudioma has done a fantastic job with this, but we have a long way to go, is our internal politics is messy, it's disgusting. We cannot get along with each other on basic things a lot of the time. And one thing I made a reputation on as a senator was being a compromiser, working with the executive branch to get things done, working with my fellow senators to create bills and resolutions that we could all agree on and pass. So I would say the nastiness is really something that we need to end. We need to come together as a student body organization and understand that if we don't work together, we will fail in our goals and objectives. We cannot accomplish, either of our tickets cannot accomplish the things that we want to accomplish if we don't work together. And whoever is the next FUSA president needs to come together to work with everybody else. They need to be able to function in our system. They need to create relationships, and they need to work with each other regardless of personal ties.
I kind of also want to echo that and just add in a little bit. I think it's really important, you know, as an organization that's serving the student body, I think it's so important that we need to be united together. I think we all need to be communicating with each other. You know, I don't think there should be secrets between, you know, like different branches, right? We're all one organization and we need to work together to serve the students.
We certainly agree with that sentiment, 100%. And you know, another issue that we would like to tackle is kind of the engagement that students have with our FUSA, right? We're not a government. We're an association that represents you. We are here to listen to your concerns, and we want you to be as involved as possible. We want you to come to our General Senate meetings and voice your concerns at our public comment, which, you know, luckily has been happening more and more, but we want that to increase more. We want you to come to all of our events, and we hope that you enjoy all of our events because, you know, that's your money, and we want to, you know, make it, we want to use it in a way that benefits you as much as possible. You know, there's a lot of ways that we are, you know, thinking about how to make this organization, you know, more receptive to students and make it more responsive. I mean, look, I mean, there's what, 100 students on this right now. There's 4,000 undergraduate students that we represent.
All right, thank you. The next question is for both tickets. COSO is severely underfunded, and there are concerns that clubs are unfunded. What will you do to improve club funding? And we're starting with Tyler and Cailyn here.
I can start. So COSA funding has been a large issue that, well, everyone's like freezing. There's been a large issue that's been affecting students. We want to be able to provide as much funding to students as possible. We want to make sure that COSO is really receptive to what they're saying, that, you know, they're not policing them all the time. They're not telling them what to do. They're not, you know, always, you know, on top of them, but we want them to be supportive, to really, you know, help them advertise their events and, you know, plan for their events as much as possible and give them the resources that they need. I don't know if Cailyn is.
Yeah, I'm going to jump in here also just to preface, I am having some internet problems. But I will say on more looking on more programming side of things, I think collaborating with events or with clubs, excuse me, to put on different events that work for them is probably also in our best interest. COSO has a reputation that is not really favorable by the different clubs right now. And I think overall on FUSA, we can all do a better job of supporting those clubs. And just from my knowledge, I think that our best efforts and my best efforts are best put as well towards supporting clubs in whatever events or things that they would like to put on through our different resources together.
So as far as clubs is one of our platform points. We're very passionate about working to address some of the issues with clubs. And we believe that to bring back the social culture that Fairfield really has, we need clubs to be a major part of that. We need clubs to be a big part of that solution, and we are more than willing to giving them the funding to do so. What a lot of people don't know about club leaders is they'll oftentimes spend their own money because it's so difficult to get funding from COSO. That's an absurd practice. If money exists and these people can't even get it, then what failure of the system is there? And that's not blaming anyone. It's been a problem for years. And I think our COSO is going to be committed to that leadership vision that I described earlier. It's going to be an organization that is completely focused on how they can facilitate every single club's goals. And that's really our vision. And the other thing we want to do is marketing. Is clubs and membership is always an issue. So we want to create a marketing pamphlet. It would be a digital pamphlet. Sustainability is important, but it would have basically, I imagine, like a yearbook type page for every club almost, where they get to describe what issues or why you should join their club and what things that they like to do. And Manjot, if you'd like to talk about some of the affinity club plans we have for affinity clubs as well.
Of course, yeah. So, we really want to work a lot with the affinity clubs and make sure that they're getting full representation. I know a lot of students on campus don't even know what affinity clubs are. I feel like they just are not given the same representation as bigger clubs. And I'm actually the vice chair of the Student Diversity Council, and a project that we're currently working on is with COSO. And we want to have some sort of connection between the Fairfield United clubs as well as bigger clubs, combining two different kind of groups and bringing them together so we could have more people attending those clubs. So that's increased participation, and we're also helping people get educated about what the other clubs stand for.
Thank you both for that. This is going to be the last question of the night before we move to closing statements, and it's one that was addressed towards both tickets by multiple different people in multiple different forms. The question is, the students affected by racism and homophobia do not want apologies or empty words. They would like some actual change and plans for reform. What solid reforms do you have for the community in terms of educating the students on and combating the effects of racism and homophobia? We're going to start with Noah and Manjot.
I would start by saying we know diversity we have a commitment to diversity. We know that Fairfield says time and again that it's committed to diversity and excellence. But however, whenever we talk with students of diverse backgrounds, several conversations I've had, it has always been that a lot of them don't feel like Fairfield is safe and that Fairfield is home. And that is something that we need to change. We need to change that perspective. And I'm working on the Student Diversity Council as well. I've been getting involved in that. And one thing that we've committed to doing is working with the FYE program to make sure that all students have some sort of basic education on some of the racial injustice that happens nowadays. I think it's a major issue. And currently we just have FYE groups that just talk about racial injustice. But the students that need that training the most are students who would never sign up for those groups. So we need to make sure that that every single student who passes through these gates knows about racial injustice and can understand it, and to make sure that the Magis Corps, which has failed in a lot of ways with the racial justice component, they haven't created classes for them to satisfy those needs. So we need to make sure there's classes that also satisfy those needs. If you want to cover the rest of this, Manjot.
Yeah, I think Noah did an excellent job saying that, and kind of just echoing what he just said. I think it's so important right now to really understand where everyone is coming from. I think what makes us all so unique is that we all have different perspectives and different opinions, right? I think we really need to respect everyone that's around us and really taking the time to educate ourselves, which I think is so important right now. Educating ourselves on what other people think, and also trying to take time to understand that, like our differences aren't what make us separate from each other. We should be learning about each other and kind of taking those things and bringing us together, not apart.
Tyler and Cailyn, same question.
So I think first and foremost, it's important for us Tyler and I, to acknowledge that we cannot speak to the experience of a student of color on this campus. And we're not going to pretend to or try to act like we do, but to say that we wouldn't be willing to break our backs to make sure that every student on this campus feels welcome and feels accepted and feels like they have a place is something that I can assure you is true. And in terms of homophobia, we have a zero tolerance policy. As a queer person that came into this campus and was not necessarily feeling accepted, I can guarantee you that I am going to work so hard. Tyler is going to work so hard to make sure that no student on this campus feels like they don't have a place for them or feels like their leadership is not in support of how they choose to live their lives. When we say we care about every student, we truly do mean every student, no matter how they identify. We cannot forget about those that identify with different religions, different genders, different sexualities, different ethnicities, races, the list goes on. I think Tyler and I have made it very clear, and I hope we are able to continue to make it clear that we're willing to do what it takes to make a difference and to make this campus a more accepting place for every student.
All right, thank you. We are now going to move to closing statements. Candidates or tickets will have 1 minute to give a closing statement. We're going to start with Noah and Manjot for this.
As the world slowly heals, as the days go on, the world slowly heals. Our lives have all been impacted in profound ways. We lost time with our friends. We lost freedom and opportunities. We've experienced tragedy, but now we have an opportunity to recover. When you go to vote on Sunday for Noah Richardson and Manjot Singh, you vote for a new normal. You vote for an incredibly committed team, one of the most productive student advocates in recent history, and a visionary associate director. Our mission is ambitious, but our goals are attainable. We will transform this organization from sometimes divided and often overlooked to united and involved in every single major decision this university decides to make. Our platform can truly change our university, starting with a focus on bringing Fairfield back. We'll work with administrators to develop plans for classes, programmings, and vaccinations. And we will work to fix issues students have with dining by saving the food trucks first, and then have a student-selected on-campus restaurant. We will work to address issues of diversity by promoting better services and space for commuters and increasing diversity within FUSA. And finally, we're going to work to make our clubs a major part of our campus culture with more funding and marketing resources. I know there was a lot of excellent questions that were asked, and we are more than willing to, if you DM our account, to answer some of those afterwards. We know there's a lot of concerns that people have, and we'd be glad to discuss them with you. Thank you all for coming.
I just want to echo that and say thank you everyone for taking the time to be here. We really appreciate you taking the time to listen to our platform, coming to listen to our ideas. Thank you.
Thank you both. And now Tyler and Cailyn, you may give your closing statement.
Thank you for coming tonight. We hope this debate has been informative, and we hope that you have been able to see that we both genuinely care about our school and all of you. We truly want to have an impact on this university. As we both head into our senior year and looking back at our past 3 years, we feel that we have enough meaningful experience to make us the most qualified people to represent you. Our platform does not only address a variety of campus issues, but proposes realistic and achievable solutions. We know what it takes to return safely to campus events. We know what it takes to become a greener Fairfield, and we are ready to work together to overcome the racial inequalities that exist at our school.
If elected, we hope that at the end of our term, we are known to be an administration that was fair and passionate about each and every issue we tackled. We hope to be remembered as two people who truly care about Fairfield. We believe that through our determination, enthusiasm, and honesty, we will be able to achieve just that. Even after this debate, after this campaign, and with voting opening in just a few days, we stand firm in our belief that we are the best candidates to serve you. Thank you to those who have already shown their support. Thank you to all of you for taking the time to be here tonight. And as always, thank you for coming on this journey with us. Go Stags.
All right, that will conclude this year's presidential and vice presidential debate. I'd like to thank all of the candidates who came today and did a great job speaking. I'd like to also thank my fellow members on the court who helped put on this debate and write up these questions and make it something that was that flowed smoothly. For all of you in attendance, the ballot is going to open this Sunday. So make sure you vote. It's going to be open until for 3 days until the following Tuesday, the 23rd at 5 p.m. And then we're going to be announcing the results on that Tuesday, the 23rd at 7 p.m. And there will be a Zoom link for that. I also know that there was a raffle of sorts for attending this. We're going to send out the winner of that in a couple of days. So just watch your email for that as well. Thank you all again for coming. Have a good night.